The Durban International Film Festival, together with the Encounters Film Festival, are two of the biggest film festivals in the country. Over the years, both festivals have played an avid role in not only promoting films by established filmmakers, but also up-and-coming, some of which who have gone on to showcase their work on public platforms. This year, the festivals have been dedicated in promoting female filmmakers. Today, we're joined by two female filmmakers, Sihle Hlophe, who made a short film under lockdown titled Lindela Under Lockdown. The film centers on deportees who have been complaining about not being able to observe social distancing because of overcrowding, unsanitary facilities, mistreatment, food shortages, widespread corruption and irregular legal processes. While Wissel Abrahams joins us to talk about her film, The Art of Fallism, which uses the 2015 Rhodes Must Fall movement in South Africa as its point of departure. A very good morning to you two. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Wissel, I'm going to start with you. Now, the documentary that you produced, The Art of Fallism, will be showing at this year's DIFF. Take us through how your participation in the festival came about.
Yeah, well, the film actually took off in Europe and in North America first. With the festivals, Hot Docs was the main one really that got us noticed. And then the Durban Film Festival approached us, I think about 2 months ago, to say, listen, you've been selected, and we got an email. We were all very happy, and we've been corresponding ever since.
So what's the main message that you're trying to push across with this documentary, and do take us through the production process?
So I think the main message of the film really is, well, the film's title is The Art of Fallism, which is a play on words of the art of war, which is ultimately, if you look at what's happening now in the current political landscape globally with all the statues being pulled down, it really did start here 4 years ago in South Africa. We were, on the forefront of this revolution, as historically we often are with these kinds of struggles. And the main message of the film is really to talk about the process of fallism. Mm-hmm. So what happens when a group of people of different colors, different cultures, but who all have a single task and goal in mind, which is against white supremacy at the end of the day, and that ingrained system. What are the internal struggles within those movements that we need to be aware of, so that we ourselves are safe to be around in the process of revolution? So that when we are trying to break down a system, we're not in turn breaking down ourselves and breaking down each other. And so really the production process was extremely challenging, because when you speak this kind of language, you have to practice it as well. And so with us as the filmmakers, being a Norwegian South African production, it was extremely difficult, because Norway, as you know, is on the top of of the map, in South Africa we're down here, and so we had to travel that distance internally every single time. We had meetings every single time we disagreed. We had to come to the middle and make a decision where we could walk away and still be friends. Okay. So it was a very challenging process, and I think we are more proud of the film now because we managed to come through that hole at the end of the day and not burning any bridges and each other. Right. And more so than the film itself, if you know what I mean.
Right. And thank you so much for highlighting that message. And Sihle, let me also bring you into this conversation. Take us through the plot of your film and who you worked with to bring it all together.
Okay, so basically my film follows the journey of a Congolese deportee called David, who was detained at Lindela Repatriation Center for over 120 days. You'll see what happens in the film. I can't give it all away, but then through David's journey, we get to experience what life under lockdown is like inside there, and the conditions that him and the other deportees live under, which you have mentioned, which include like the lack of social distancing, not having proper sanitation, and so forth. And for me, I came across this topic because of some of the news reports I was seeing, but I'd always heard about Lindela and wondered what would be happening in a place like that during this time. And to make this film possible, it was produced by us, Passion Seed Communications, which is a production company, which is a social enterprise that I own together with STEPS and the DFA, which is the Documentary Filmmakers Association of South Africa.
Your film is part of the 2020 Encounters edition, and it centers around David, who is a Congolese deportee who was detained at the largest facility for the holding of undocumented migrants. Why was this story an important one to tell?
So when the national lockdown was put in place, I heard about these grants for 350. And then I started reading and I found out that if you're a migrant, you don't get access. You can't get access to free COVID testing if you don't have a passport number. Yet at the same time, the borders are closed. So you also can't make a living, but you're stuck in this country. And we know that this country is rife with xenophobia. So I then wondered, what would life be like for somebody who's undocumented during this time, if it's so difficult for someone who is documented. And that is how the journey began. And through that journey, you started speaking to people from different migrant communities, and then came across the story of David, who then started interacting with while he was inside, because he had somehow managed to get access to a phone. And that's how we managed to get the information about what was going on inside at the time.
Okay. All right. Now, Wissel, you and Ingvild Agedal, who is an international filmmaker, will feature in an engaged session where you'll be speaking about the notion of decolonial approaches to storytelling, which was, of course, becoming a guiding tool for their production process. So what topics will be tackled during this engagement?
I think the conversation with myself and Ingvild will really be around our experiences with the production as producers. What we found was that because we had an all female or all women with an X team, mostly we had like one male technical guy on our team, and everyone else was female, and that was very intentional. We got to actually really recreate a lot of the systems that we've been taught as filmmakers in the industry. We got to really debunk them and recreate them. And so we found that, you know, our process of the filmmaking was very different, and also allowed for conflict to come into play without then, as I said, going into territory where we couldn't return, you know. So really the topics, I think, will be around how we actually deal with conflict in a creative space, where we actually need to come home with a product at the end of the day, when we have to come out with something. And also the process of letting things just sit and be, you know, and learning how to be uncomfortable with one another, and also how to relinquish being right sometimes, or what feels right, because you're speaking on behalf of people who are not in the room. You're considering people, voices who are not present, and that complex process really that happens, I think, now with the very conscientized, creative field that we're in right now. I think just generally we are all trying very hard to not repeat mistakes that have happened in the past, and especially now more than ever we have to be really conscious of our own can say emotional distraction footprint, you know, like we have to make sure we're not distracting as we move around as creatives, because that creative force will always be with us, and we will always want to satisfy that need. But at the same time, we have to create things that are lasting and that can create harmony, stories that can be celebrated, because the process of that story didn't create distraction for other people or environments or places.
Oh, gosh, I'm afraid we have to end it there. We don't have much time, unfortunately. But Wissel and Sihle, great chatting to you too. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right, that was Sihle Hlophe and Wissel Abrahams talking to us about their participation in the Durban International Film Festival, as well as the Encounters South African International Documentary Festival. We'll take a quick break. We'll have more in a moment. This is Morning Live.